Hey guys, welcome back to Mimir. Today's episode is a real pinch me moment. I was a Three Ships customer before I knew Connie Lo's name. I absolutely love their jelly drops for the most amazing glow and their soft serve lip balm before bed. I actually found Three Ships at Credo Beauty, one of my all-time favorite places for truly clean products, and as someone who's allergic to literally everything, finding products that are safe, let alone work, is few and far between. So when my friend Amanda told me that she had DM'd Connie on Substack and that Connie had not just responded, but written back with such a warmth and kindness, I knew I had to shoot my shot. And so I sent the message asking if she'd be willing to come on Mimir, and here we are. Ironically, the interview itself kind of ended up being about shooting your shot. There's a story in here about 23-year-old Connie at the end of a beauty trade show. She walks up to a woman with her name badge flipped around and nobody else was approaching her, but halfway through the conversation, it was revealed that she was the buyer from Whole Foods, and a year later, Three Ships was in half of California. That's sort of the through line for the whole episode, the unsexy, slightly awkward reality of how a brand actually gets built. If you're an early stage founder, especially one in consumer or beauty, this is a rare operational masterclass. We talk about Three Ships' 37% repeat rate and what Connie attributes that to. We talk through a replicable product development process and the realistic timeline for beauty products. Connie also shares the biggest mistakes founders make when they decide to start their companies. But outside all of the amazing wisdom that Connie imparts, I'm really impressed by how she keeps her ego small, her identity bigger than the company, and her wins documented so she doesn't lose track of how far she's come. Connie is a huge inspiration to me, and I am beyond excited to welcome her to the podcast. How are you?
I'm good. It's been extremely busy this week, so thanks for your patience and flexibility. We have a really big retail pitch coming up, and so we just had lots of last minute presentations and prep, but feeling good.
That's so exciting. I hope it goes well.
Thank you. So excited to be here, Maddie.
I'm so inspired by your journey. I use your products. I love them. So as a beauty founder that has really no background in beauty, navigating any of the things that come with that, it all feels a little bit overwhelming, but I'm excited to learn from you and hear about your journey.
So I've been into beauty since I was in sixth grade. I remember at that time I started to develop preteen acne, and I don't know about you, your skin looked great, but I had insane acne at the time. And I remember it really affected my confidence. And so I would go to my local drugstores and try to find something that was marketed for breakouts and acne. And I tried everything, literally everything, everything from the apricot scrub to, oxy pads and everything in between. And my skin just broke out even more and became really irritated and red and really sensitive. And what I know now, being in the beauty industry, is that I had totally wrecked my skin barrier. But back then, I felt like I was at my wit's end. And again, even leaving the house was really tough for me because of how much the skin affected my confidence. And so out of desperation, I turned to my mom, and she's really into holistic remedies. And she's always been a fan of hey, you should really think about using more natural ingredients. You should look at what you're eating. It's really a reflection of what you eat shows up on your skin. And so I was like, okay, sure. I'd never really been into any of these natural remedies before, but I decided to go with her that weekend to Whole Foods and to our local farmers market. And she taught me about different natural ingredients that could be good for irritated skin. So oats for sensitivity, green tea for hydration. And I started to make my own face masks at home after school. And lo and behold, most of my skin drastically cleared up, especially after starting to eat better and just starting to care more about what I was putting in and on my body. And so at that point, I was like, hey, there really is something to natural beauty. But I never really thought that this would become a company or anything like that. I went to school for business and I graduated, started working in marketing and sales. And it was during that time that I met my co-founder, Laura. So that's really the story of how we got into skincare. When Laura and I met, we both bonded over how frustrated we were with the state of the beauty industry. Things are extremely expensive. There's a lot of greenwashing because there's no legal definition for the term natural. So brands can say whatever they want, which is baffling to me. And I remember when Laura first told me that, I didn't believe her. I was like, nah, you just didn't search hard enough online to like find a definition. But like there truly isn't one. And that's what we're so passionate about creating at Three Ships. And on top of that, when you would find something that was truly natural and effective, it was like hundreds of dollars. And so being two 23-year-old broke college grads, we were like, we just can't justify spending that kind of money. So we decided to create our own line of 100% plant or mineral derived skincare that's actually effective and accessibly priced.
Yeah, honestly, I love that story because I feel so similarly. Like, I have really sensitive skin. I have very reactive skin, so I'm allergic to most products. Depends on like what preservatives are in them, what chemicals are in them, even stuff that's considered clean. I've had bad experiences with, and so to your point, like I'm very conscientious about what I'm getting and why I'm buying them. And the ingredients to me is like the number one thing, especially if they're difficult to understand. There's no consistency across the industry. And I also think there's something to be said too about the way that companies think about themselves in the clean skincare industry. Like some brands I feel like really make that their whole personality. And sometimes it doesn't necessarily relate to the customer because I think some people arrive at clean skincare because they're forced to, not because like that is their aesthetic or their lifestyle too.
I think that's a really good point. And I think like it kind of gets at one of the misconceptions within the natural beauty industry, which is like if you use natural beauty products, you must be someone that like only buys organic and like only shops at Whole Foods and like their whole lifestyle is clean. But like there's something called the toxic load that, you're willing to put up with as a consumer. And it means that like, hey, maybe you're not using everything natural, but you, for the most important things, you do want to use natural. So like, for example, within even in skincare, maybe since a cleanser is a wash off product, you are okay with using something that's synthetic. But for something like a serum or a moisturizer, you're like, you know what, stays on my skin. I do want something that's plant based. Or maybe you're currently transitioning your routine to natural, but like it's totally a waste of money to throw out all your current products. So I always recommend to people like start one at a time. And then once you use up the old product, then consider if you want to switch. And I even do this for myself. Like I've been trying to transition more of my household cleaners to natural, but I still have like a Costco sized tub of like dishwashing like tabs. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to just throw those out. So let me use those up first, and then I'm going to switch to the powder. So it's a journey, and I think what's great about the beauty industry is that like it's not one size fits all. Like you can use certain products from certain brands, you can use some that are natural versus not, and that's what's fun about the beauty industry.
And I think that's what it is at the end of the day for me. Like I love beauty because it's fun and you want to participate in it not because you have to but because you want to. As a as a founder, like I'm a consumer first, like same as you, like I've always loved beauty. And I try products from different companies. And I think that's just like the natural order of things. And I wonder if you think about this from a founder perspective, like understanding that the consumer might not buy everything that you guys have in the wheelhouse, but how do you create products that really support them and then also introduce them to, maybe fantasy state is that their entire routine is Three Ships, but like does that ever cross your mind the way that you use beauty and like how that translates to how you serve your customers?
So, what's really interesting is most brands, a customer will maybe buy one or two products from them. But surprisingly, at Three Ships, and like the number of reviews that we read that mention this is insane. A lot of people will transition their full routine. And that wasn't the intention. And that's,
Amazing.
we've never been a brand to say you have to use this 12-step routine. We don't even have 12-step routines, but like we never tell customers you can only use Three Ships to be effective. Like there's a Clinique like 3-step routine. And if you don't follow that, then like your skin's messed up. Like for us, it's like, hey, use what you like, drop what you don't. But I think it's because our products truly work so well that people just switch their entire routine. And we categorize our skincare by skin type. So for example, the blue line is hydration. So that's for dry skin. The purple line is for sensitive skin. So maybe someone like you would use our purple line because there's no fragrance. It was developed with a dermatologist. The orange line is brightening. And so sometimes you'll see customers buy by routine. So they'll buy like the blue cleanser, the blue toner, the blue serum, the blue cream. But sometimes when customers like to like play with different lines more, they'll use like the brightening mask from the orange line, and then they'll use our blue jelly drops serum because that's our number one bestseller. And then they really know that they need like a really thick cream that's good for fine lines. So they're going to use our Firm Believer cream from the green line, which is for mature skin and smoothing fine lines. So again, it's like kind of fun that you can play around with different products, but surprisingly, a lot of customers will buy like multiples from 3Ships. And our average unit order per order is 3.4 units. So that means that when a customer buys online from 3Ships, they're usually buying 3.4 units, 3.4 products per order, which is like, again, it's a lot for beauty.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Like based on the surface that I've scratched so far of what it means to run a beauty company, like you really want to think about repeat purchase and like how much of the lifetime value of the customer that you're getting plus like cost of acquisition. And so it's really, really fascinating that you're getting that much from like a first time customer. But I think that also
and like on top of that, like our repeat rates are like 37%, which is like 1.5 times the beauty industry average, which again goes to show like for you or anyone starting a beauty brand, like the product needs to be A plus. Like if you don't have a good product, no matter what marketing you do, people aren't going to come back. Like they're going to get tricked once maybe, but then, after that, they'll really go for something that's effective. So again, product always trumps. And that's why I'm so glad we're going to be like talking a lot about product formulations.
Yeah, why don't we go there now? Walk me through how that started for you guys. What was your hero SKU? How did that process get started? How long did it take? All that stuff.
So we have a more unique journey in that we launched our brand as a side hustle. So Laura and I each had 2,000 Canadian dollars when we started the company, and we were working 9 to 5. So this was truly like a moonlit business for the first year and a half. And because we only had $4,000, there was no way we could work with a manufacturer at the start. So what we did was we actually handmade our products for the first like 2.5 years. And these were made in my apartment kitchen in like small stainless steel mixing bowls. We would buy ingredients and packaging from local suppliers that had smaller minimum order quantities. So we'd buy like a liter of coconut oil and buy like a little, 30 ml bottle of lavender essential oil. And then we buy like plastic packaging locally. And we had a $300 laser printer that we would use to print labels. So it was like very, very DIY. And then eventually when we start to scale, we start to work with co-manufacturers. So for those that are starting a beauty brand, like you don't have to like self-manufacture. In fact, like usually brands don't. You'll find what's called like a contract manufacturer, or in beauty industry terms, like a co-man. So once you find a co-man, these co-mans actually will manufacture for a bunch of brands. So like, for example, one time I was touring a co-man in Toronto, and Toronto's actually a cosmetic manufacturing hub. And I saw on the line, there were products from NARS and from like Ilia and like brands that you like really know, but they were making specific products from those brands. And then different co-mans will specialize in different formulations. So we had a co-man that was really good at lip product, but not good at like face products. And then we had another co-man that was really good at serums and creams. I think the first product that we ever outsourced was our gel cleanser. It's called Purify. It's still one of our best sellers. And that was because the DIY products that we made in my kitchen, those were all oil-based because we didn't need a preservative. But once you start playing with water and formulas, like you need to have a natural preservative. So that was the first product that we launched with the co-man. And that was the first product where we had like minimum order quantities of a couple of thousand units. So that was like a big leap for us. But then from that point on, everything was made by a manufacturer.
So then what's the difference then if you work with a formulator and then they have like third party relationships with manufacturers that do the like actual packaging and stuff? So then typically does that mean that the formulator then like makes the stuff in the lab, does all the testing, and then sends it off to the manufacturer, and then the manufacturer packages everything and then like ships it to you? Or do sometimes they do like, because I feel like every time and every person you talk to does things a little bit differently, but I was wondering if maybe there's like an standard.
So I think the way that we do things is not industry standard, and it's because we've heard it from our manufacturers. So one thing that we do at 3Ships is our definition of natural means everything is plant or mineral based. And what that means is it's not even just the ingredients that are plant or mineral based, it's actually the sub ingredients. And you might be being like, what does that even mean? But if you look at a product INCI list, like the ingredient list, and you see on the ingredient list lavender water, you might think, okay, lavender water, that's natural, that's plant-based. But for us, what we do is we actually look at the ingredients that go into that ingredient, because when you source from a co-manufacturer, they are sourcing their lavender water from another manufacturer. And when that manufacturer ships your co-man the lavender water, there are other ingredients in that lavender water to make it stable. So there's things like phenoxyethanol, which is a really common preservative. And so what we do is we ask our co-mans, give us the full sub ingredient breakdown of every ingredient in our formula. And we need to vet each of those individual sub ingredients against our standards for natural. And the reason why I know that this is not industry standard is because so many times co-manufacturers will push back on us and be like, no one ever asks us for that breakdown because that first ingredient level alone is enough. And we're like, it's not though. And I think that's why our products work so well for sensitive skin, because we are actually looking to see, are there any irritants in the sub ingredients? And I think that's why some people will be like, oh, natural's supposed to be better for sensitive skin, but it's not for me, because there are hidden chemicals that you just might not realize. And I'm not trying to say this to fearmonger, but it's more just like an education thing. Like, I don't think most founders even know that there's sub ingredients in their ingredients. So that aside, our process that we use to make new products is we actually have an internal R&D person, and she is the one that works with my co-founder who oversees product to think about our next 3-year roadmap of products. So let's just say we're working on a cream for 2028. What we'll do is we'll first think about what category we want this cream to be in. So just like how earlier I was saying, there's a hydration line, there's a firming line. So let's just say we realize there's a gap in the hydration line. I'm making that up because we have a cream that's in that line. And then we'll say, okay, if we want a cream that's in the hydrating category, what benefits do we want it to give the customer? So at that point, you'll do competitive research. And that's what's called where you'll like find benchmarks and you'll actually buy those products from Sephora or Shoppers or wherever and like try them and say like, okay, I really liked this about this formula. I didn't like this about this one. And you'll come up with a list of the things that you want this product to feel like. So it's like the skin feel, the touch, the dry down. You'll talk about what benefits you want to actually like give the person. So for example, if it's a product for fine lines, you can say like, I want it to smooth out fine lines. I want it to tighten the skin. I want it to get rid of like 11 lines. Like there's certain things that you can say in your brief. And then that all goes into a product brief. And so from there, our cosmetic chemist who works at one of our co-manufacturers in-house, they look at that brief and then they create several versions of a formula. So there's like maybe 5 versions that they give us back to test. And the first thing we do is we like make sure that it meets our ingredient standards, because there's no point trying a formula if it doesn't meet our standards. And our standards are pretty tough. Like we ban close to 2,000 ingredients. After we make sure like all the different versions meet our standards, then we try them on ourselves. And honestly, it's like a more an internal team thing where we're like, okay, let's try it on ourselves, try it on our friends and family, and try it on different skin types. And then we pick usually 1 to 2 winners. And then from there, and it's usually several rounds of back and forth, because like we might like a formula, but be like, it wasn't hydrating enough, but everything else was good. I did find that it helped with fine lines, but it just didn't feel very rich. And people want a rich cream if they're going to use it at night. And so we'll go back and forth with the manufacturer, the cosmetic chemist. And then after we land on a formula that we like, we actually get our manufacturer to make little sample sizes of them. And we send those out to a group of 50 3Ships customers. So this is called a pre-production sample test group. And this is another step that, you know, for your brand, like I think this would be a great idea, because you're getting your real customers to try before you launch. Because you and your team might think like this is the next best thing to sliced bread, but like maybe your customers are like, I hate this. And so we actually give the sample, we give them instructions of how to use it. And then we send them a survey with a bunch of questions like, you know, did it actually help with acne? Like scale 1 to 5, things like that. Was your skin irritated? How much would you pay for this? That's a really great question to ask, especially to inform your pricing decision. And then if we get any scores, I think below 80%, we actually go back to the drawing board and like edit the formula and then send it back to the customers. And then once we have a winning formula, at that point, the cosmetic chemist finalizes it, goes into stability testing. And then from there, it goes into production. So it's kind of a long process. So for us, that's why we're working 3 years out. And it could be even longer for products like SPF. Like we've been working on one for 5 years. So, yeah. But I think at a high level, that's how the formulation process works.
That's really cool. And I almost feel like even though the lead times are super long, like to think about including your customers in almost like a beta group, I think is really cool. Like taking some stuff from, I think always it's really fun when founders take things from tech mindset, like how you would run like a tech company and then apply them to physical products. Exactly. And like to have like a group of beta testers as part of your customers, I think is really fun. And then obviously I'm sure that improves like customer experience and stuff like that as well, because then they feel really connected to the products and to the business as a whole.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you can also get before and after photos from them. So you can ask them in the survey, like, hey, are you willing to share a photo of your skin before using this and after using it for 2 to 3 weeks? And oftentimes we get amazing before and afters that we get permission to use in our marketing for launch. So that's another benefit of doing this test.
So when you guys were first starting out and you were making formulas out of your house, like what was the growth path for you? Like how did you guys get from first product to like hiring a team and, getting into Credo and all that stuff?
It's a journey. And I think, like, I know it sounds so cliche, but it's not an overnight success by any means. I mean, including that first side hustle brand that we ended up rebranding to 3Ships in 2020, it's been 9 years since Laura and I first started working on this. So I just like to remind people that because I think it can be so common to compare yourself to brands that you see that are out there in the world at retailers that, you shop at and feeling like you're so behind, but really it took years and years. So from that first handmade product, Laura and I started a Shopify website right away. And then we also sold at farmers markets and craft fairs locally in Toronto, while I was also walking up and down the streets of like different neighborhoods in Toronto that I thought had stores that our customer would shop at. Very, like, again, very bootstrapped. And like to give an idea of how those beginning days were, like there were some days where we made like $0 in sales, like for a couple of days in a row on Shopify. And we were like, oh my gosh. And then the most common average daily sale was $33.90. And it's because our first product was $15. But if you bought two, you got free shipping. And so 15 times two was 30. And with tax, it was $33.90. And that number is like so ingrained in my co-founder, my mind, that we actually got matching tattoos with it. Like on my wrist, it says $33.90 because it like is just a reminder of how far we've come. And that like, even now when I'm working on spreadsheets and, you're in the millions and stuff, it's a really good reminder of like the beginning days and to never let your ego get ahead of you because like, yeah, there were days where we just made $33 in a day. And then along the way, we started to get some more independent retailers signing on. And then from there, we actually had a pitch competition where we won 10 grand and we used that 10 grand to attend our first beauty trade show. And at that trade show is where I start to meet bigger buyers, like buyers at the detox market or Whole Foods. And then from there, you like start those conversations. But it's like definitely a hustle. Like, for example, when I met the Whole Foods buyer at that show, it was the end of the day. And at these shows, they have name tags, but a lot of buyers will flip them around. Buyers, suppliers, press, even customers that are just wandering the floor, they're going to flip them around because they don't want you to know who they are. And so there was this woman that came in that did not fit the like stereotypical vibe of a buyer that's like really trendy and everything. She just looked like she was wandering the floor. And it was the end of the day, so everyone's really tired. And I remember like no one was going up to her to talk to her. So I was like, hey, like, do you want to learn about 3Ships? And halfway through the conversation, she like casually, but not casually turned around her badge and she was the Whole Foods buyer. So it's like these things can happen. And then I had to pretend that I didn't see, even though I did. And I was like, oh my God, it's so awkward. And then from there, we launched into like half of the stores in California. And then the year after that, she launched us into all of California. And the year after that, she launched us across all of the US. So like things take years to build over time. And same with Shopify. It's like, $33.90 in the first couple of months and years. And then you slowly start to build traction from having more customers and word of mouth. You're starting to get like in magazines. You're starting to do paid ads. Your Instagram following is starting to grow. And then it just like kind of naturally grows. But there wasn't like a 0 to like 100 moment.
Yeah. And I think that's probably pretty standard for most founders. But I always like to keep that in mind, especially like I work 9 to 5, right now. And so this is something that I'm hopefully like, I'm aware giving myself over a year to come out with the first product. And then, I don't know when I'm going to be able to leave my 9 to 5 job and like work on this full time.
Yeah.
Because you still
I have advice for you there too. So the way that Laura and I did it, which is what I recommend for other founders, is think about like your expenses and what you need to support yourself for 6 months of not paying yourself a salary or not getting a salary from your company. So what Laura and I did is we were like, okay, this is how much I'm paying in rent. This is how much I need for food. This is how much I need for entertainment, like things like that. And then we each had a number in our minds. And we're like, once our bank account hits that 6-month total, that's when we're going to bite the bullet and quit our jobs. Because if you don't have a number in mind, you're just going to be like, let me just keep waiting. Because obviously, the security blanket of having a full time job is amazing. And having that urgency and like that deadline that was very clear made Laura and I know when we had to quit to go full time. I don't recommend to founders, and it sounds like you're not doing this, to like just quit out of the blue and be like, I'm just going to figure it out. Like, that's tough because then you start making decisions out of desperation and like being risk averse. And that's never a good place to be. And then the other thing I recommend to founders who are still working a 9 to 5 is to get a bigger credit card limit while you still have a full-time salary. Because Laura and I didn't do this. We didn't think about it. So we had like our typical credit card limit. And then when we quit our full-time jobs and started working on 3 ships full-time, we needed more credit. But when we applied for more credit, they're like, well, you need a salary. And we didn't have a salary. So we weren't able to get more credit. So that's something to just like a more like tactical piece of advice I give to founders, which is like use what you have at the time to like increase your line of credit, increase your credit card limits. Not saying you need to use it all, but just have the space.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I do think that part of the hard thing about being a founder is like you're so focused on what you can do today to get the business off the ground and have like an actual product. But I think there are some necessary things that you need to do while also considering the future. So then you can kind of set yourself up for success. And like, obviously, you can handle anything that's thrown your way. But if you can do certain things to hopefully ease the burden later on and just make things a little bit easier, like I always try to be conscientious of that.
I think you need to be like forward looking for sure. It's a balance because I think as women, it's very easy for us to wait until we feel like we're ready and for things to be perfect. And so, but then at the same time, you do need to have things prepared. So what Laura and I always say, and it's like a Reid Hoffman quote, the co-founder of LinkedIn, is if you're not embarrassed by the first version of the product you launch too late. And that's why when Laura and I met, we set ourselves an artificial deadline of launching our brand within 3 months. And that was like a really short time frame. And that included the holiday break. And we're like, but we're just going to do it because it's better to get your product out there and start to get customer feedback than waiting.
Yeah. And then how did the rebrand process go? Like how was that with your customers? Like what did that look like in terms of switching things over? Like was it pretty seamless?
Well, it was relatively seamless because we did a lot of planning, but the reason why we rebranded is first off, like the previous brand name, it was New Body. It was spelled NIU because new meant coconut in Hawaiian, and our first product line was coconut oil based. Again, no marketing budget, $4,000. It was honestly a terrible name. People thought New was an acronym. They thought we were a body care line, which like body was in the name. I remember there was like, when we first launched the brand, it was so unfortunate for SEO purposes online. If you searched New Body, it just so happened that at the time there was a body that was discovered on Northern Illinois University campus, which is like New Body. And so when you search the brand, you would see all these articles about this body that was discovered. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is like not a good look for the brand. And at the same time, we actually got a cease and desist letter from another bigger brand that had skin tools, but was launching into skincare. And like the brand names weren't even that similar, but they had New in their name. And they were like, you need to not use this name. And all of these signs were like, we need to rebrand. So another thing, and the biggest thing, was that New Body was really like Gen Z focused. It was very pink and like we would, it was just very young because we assumed that the target demographic for affordable skincare was people who didn't have as much money, and that's a younger demographic. But what we actually realized after like our first year and a half of sales is that most of our customers were actually millennials who understood the quality of the skincare we were making. And they were like, wait, this is like half of, or a third the price of what I'm paying for other brands I would buy at like the detox market. I'm just going to use their brand. So we're like, we need to age up the brand a little and make it more focused on like efficacy and transparency. So all of those reasons were why we rebranded to 3 Ships. So when we made the decision to rebrand, we first raised like a small friends and family round to like get new packaging, work on the actual brand with the brand agency. This is before the days of like Claude and like ChatGPT. So it was like very like manual. And then we had to like get obviously all the new inventory. And then we had a different communication plan for like our direct to consumer channel and then our wholesalers, because like they had to swap all the inventory. So back then we didn't have too many retailers. So we did a free swap of all their inventory. And then we gave them all talking points for like transitioning New Body to 3 Ships. We worked with editors to like talk about the rebrand. So we got some good like press hits. So it's like a whole process. But I think that there's like probably a lot of useful guides online now for your listeners if they're looking to rebrand. And we knew that the rebrand was a success because as soon as we rebranded, our sales shot up. And it was a lot easier to pitch buyers. Like the brand just was so much more clear to them. And it no longer felt like I was pushing a boulder up a hill. It was like, oh, people just got it. And I was like, okay, that meant that this rebrand was a success.
How did you come up with 3 ships?
Yeah, so the 3 ships are like the 3 pillars of our brand. So it's uncensorship, leadership, and partnership. So uncensorship is like transparency. Leadership is like, yeah, leadership is like being leaders in the space to create a definition for natural. And partnership is all about like, we know we can't do it alone. So we want to partner with other beauty brands and with our customers to demand actual legal change in the industry.
Did you have to go and get a trademark and everything for that ahead of time? Or what did that process look like?
Yeah, so we did a trademark search as soon as we were thinking of different brand names. And then you need to also make sure that you're looking at other markets. So like even though we're not sold in China, we knew that they're actually first to file. Actually, we didn't realize it right away. So we had submitted our trademark for North America and Europe. And we're like, oh, we should submit for China. But then there's these like trademark squatters. I don't know the right term for it, but what they do is they find brands. And then in China, the way that trademarks work is it's called first to file. So whoever's the first one to file for the trademark wins the trademark versus in North America, they kind of look at like, do you have a business with that name? Do you actually have operations with that name? Because like then someone else could just file for 3 ships and like get it without actually being 3 ships as a brand. But in China, it's whoever's first and someone saw 3 ships and filed for it. And then what they do is they make you pay for it. So I remember we reached out to them. We're like, hey, we want the trademark. And they're like, it's going to be like X number of tens of thousands of dollars. And we're like, whatever, we're not going to pay you. So what we did is we waited for that trademark to expire because we're like, this is a game. We know that it's a game that they play. And then as soon as it expired, we filed again and then we got it. That's something to keep in mind when you're filing for trademark.
Yeah, because I think it's like part of the sort of unglamorous, sexy side of starting a business, like the LLC, the bank account,
yeah,
all of those things, the domain, the trademarks. Like these are the dominoes that have to fall at the same time that you're trying to figure out your formulas, the packaging of it all, the branding of it all.
Get business
I think
insurance.
it's just one of those like, really, I didn't know about this business insurance.
You need business insurance because if someone uses your product and has a reaction, they could sue you. So you need to make sure that you have insurance to cover. So it's like commercial general liability insurance. Most of the time when you work with a retailer, they'll require like a $5 million limit for insurance. So it's like a couple grand that you pay a year, depending on how much your revenue is. It goes up with as your revenue scales, but insurance is extremely important. So you're not liable if someone uses your products and has a reaction. And then there's just like a lot of people that are unfortunately like bad actors out there. And so you have to be really careful with what you put on your packaging. Like, for example, in the beginning, we had 100% natural on the packaging. And then someone immediately was like, do not put that on there because like anytime you put 100% anything, there's people that will go into stores and grocery stores and just look for brands that have anything they could sue for and just sue them. Or like if your website font size is too small, then they'll sue you and say like they had accessibility issues and they couldn't read it. Or if the contrast on your website is not strong enough, like between like the 2 colors, they could sue you for that too. So it's called AODA compliance for your website. So I know we're getting into like a lot of the technicalities, but these are things that you learn after being sued. Luckily, we weren't because we had so many friends that were sued that told us. So you just have to be really careful.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation.
Yeah, don't worry. Just like search on Claude and be like, what are all the ways I could get sued as a small business owner and then avoid those?
So, okay, I'm thinking about, sorry, I'm like ping-ponging all over the place, but my brain is firing a million miles an hour because I have so many questions for you. But when you guys were starting, like, and you're doing the like farmers markets, craft fairs, which I'm so glad you brought up because the second I had this idea for the business, my fiance was like, I can't wait to do farmers markets with you. Like there's one down the street from our house that we always go to. And so I was like, literally can't wait to have a booth there. So excited. But I'm wondering like how much social media were you guys pushing at the same time? I think I get a little bit nervous and I'm like, I feel like I have to be doing all the things, but is there maybe like a more strategic way or like a more human way to go about that in the early stages?
Well, first off, it was me and my co-founder that started the brand. So that's like a big thing because I'm thinking about workload. And like, I really admire people who are solo founders. And it sounds like you're doing it solo. I mean, obviously you have your fiance's support, but you're the business owner. And I find that really tough for a lot of people because like, you're taking on the brunt of everything. So I would just keep that in mind because it might be beneficial to have someone to balance you out and like for me and my co-founder, she's really good at the back end. I'm really good at the front end. So you just have someone to like split the workload with. So when I think back to those beginning days, it was very manual. Like I remember being in my work cubicle on my 9 to 5, and I was on Instagram 3 hours a day, just like commenting on potential customers' profiles, sending them discount codes, looking at people who are following our competitors and following them, interacting with their stuff. Like it was very manual. But I think that actually led to our first like 1,000 real customers, because like the brand is so real, like they knew it was me that they were talking to. And then with the farmers markets, like again, it's a lot of hours of work that go into it. At least it sounds like you probably won't be hand making your product, but for Laura and me, we first had to make the product and then have it ready for the farmers market. So like we would have our 6-foot table, we'd have like our display, all the products, the like stripe machine or whatever we were using at the time, Square maybe. And then you'd have to set up and stand all day for like 8 to 10 hours. And then if we were lucky in a day, we would make like $1,400. And then on an average market day, it was maybe 800 to 1,000. If it was a Christmas market, it'd be like maybe 2,000. But like the farmers markets that we went to only cost like $100 to display at. So other than that, and the Ubers to get there, but maybe you could just walk down the street, and like food for lunch, like everything else was profit for us. And then we put that straight back into the business. So I don't know if I answered your question, but maybe like, I think you have to get really clear with yourself on like how much work do you actually want to put into this. And for my co-founder and me, when we started when we were 23, we were like, this is going to be our 100%. We have nothing else that is a priority. Like, you know, we had no obligations. We weren't married. We didn't have kids. We didn't have like mortgages at the time. So we just could afford to put all of our mental energy into this other than our 9 to 5s. And it wasn't like one of us had a vision of working a 4-hour work week, and then one of us was like, no, I want to go 100 hours a week. We have to be like really aligned. And then now that I'm in my early 30s, I'm no longer working that amount, but like being an entrepreneur, you're always on. And so I think even though I'm not physically working all the time, I'm still like thinking about work all the time, even on weekends. Yeah. So again, I know I didn't really answer your question, but it is all encompassing if you do want to like grow it fast.
Yeah. And I think for me, like that makes perfect sense. And I feel like I'm really aligned with that. Like I recognize the effort that it's going to take, and I have no issue with that. And I think I am really motivated to make this my full-time thing. It's what I've always wanted. Like I feel like I've been preparing for this for so long, and I'm so ready. And to your point, I do feel like I have to do it now, especially as a woman. Like I'm 30, you know, and we hopefully are getting married next year, but God bless my mom. She wants to plan the whole thing, so I don't have to worry about that.
Wow, that's so nice.
Yes. Yeah. Because I told her, I was like, I literally don't have the mental capacity to do that because I'm so motivated to get this business off the ground. And I think it's good. Like, I think it feels like things are coming back to you. Like, it doesn't feel like you're just doing all of this work and like nothing is happening. But if you're seeing sales at a farmer's market, if you're seeing responses on Instagram, like I think that is enough to keep you going and to keep the motivation there to recognize that it's going to work. And like this journey, I have no ideas that it's not going to be hard. I think every founder knows that when they enter this way, like it's going to be challenging and push you in other ways.
For sure. As an entrepreneur, you need to have so much resilience and grit. And I think like what's great for motivation is to document your wins. I feel like we could be so hard on ourselves that we're just always thinking about the next step and the next step. But something that I did early on is I had a Google Drive folder called like my personal wins. And I would just screenshot things along the way that I was like, oh, I really think that was a win for me. So even if it was like a good customer review that like really meant something to me, I would save it. And I would always date the documents, like the year, date, and then like what the description was. And where this comes in handy is now that I look back at that folder and I see what I found like a win in like 2020 and having a team of 4. And like I screenshotted our Zoom meeting, our team meeting. And I was like, wow, we have 2 other team members. Like now we have like 22 corporate full time. So then I'm like, it's so gratifying to see what was considered a win back then. And it still means as much as it did back then. But it's really like great to track your progress and your journey. Otherwise, you're just going to like kind of de-emphasize all the things that are positive and just focus on like the things that you haven't done yet or the things that you did wrong. And like, that's not a way to sustain yourself long-term.
Yeah. It's the 3390 of it all.
Yeah, the 3390. Yeah, maybe we'll make that a thing.
What do you think has been the biggest change in yourself that you've seen after becoming a founder or as a result of becoming a founder?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I became a lot more confident. So, I mean, I
Mm,
went to school at like one of the top business schools in Canada, and I was always comparing myself to my peers who are going into banking, consulting, finance, and like here I am going to marketing and sales, which wasn't a glamorous industry at the time. Like they didn't really talk about it much at school, and all the smart kids would go into banking. And I remember feeling like really stupid going into something like marketing, even though for me, I like am really lit up by anything to do like with customers and customer facing. But then once I got into entrepreneurship and like realized all the skills that are so beneficial that I have that other people don't, even if they're book smart, and like seeing that lead to like retailers getting landed, closing deals with investors, hiring team members and like sharing our vision with them, that builds a lot of confidence because you're like, okay, I was brought onto this world for like a unique reason and I'm actually accomplishing it and like not going down a path just because it's what other people say is good. So I feel like that's the biggest change. But on the note of like identity and being a founder, something that I always also try to remind other founders who are like really driven is don't let being a founder become your whole identity. And it could be
yeah.
really hard going back to what we were saying earlier about having it, be your 24/7 and not letting it become your whole identity. Because one of our mentors really early on had told us that. And it really stuck with me because he was saying like, for him, he had a lot of friends growing up who went to professional like hockey. And after they stopped being hockey players, they like became depressed because their whole identity was being a hockey player and they didn't have good friends, family, like they didn't have good relationships. They didn't really take care of their health. They didn't have hobbies. And like, yeah,
Mm,
they just kind of like languished because they didn't know who they were. And so, other than being a founder, like, think about like, being a great fiance, being a great daughter, having good friends, taking care of your health. No matter what happens in work, if it's good or bad, you're going to have like some line between that. So I think that's great. It's kind of like stoicism. It's like if your work's going really well, you can celebrate it, but like again, it doesn't become your whole identity where like your productivity becomes your self-worth. And then on the flip side, if things are going badly in work, you're not going to feel like it's your fault or feel shame about it. You're just going to be like, okay, that sucked. Like, what am I going to do about this? So yeah, I think it's a really good piece of advice to just like kind of try to split your identity from being a founder.
yeah. And I think the cool thing about the journey of being a founder is that you have all of this lived experience. And I think that wisdom is who you are. It's not the fact that you own a business. I think that it's like a greater experience of hyper pressurized growth and learning. And then also at the same time, like, regardless of what business you're working on, you are the person who's working on it. And there's so much more to us as humans aside from like the work that we do. And so I totally agree. Like I talk about that all the time on the podcast where it's like you cannot have this be your entire personality because if something happens, and then also I think going back to what you said earlier too, like you make decisions in times of chaos out of desperation because you feel like if this doesn't work out, then like what am I going to do with myself? So um what hobbies do you do?
Yeah. So I love anything to do with health and wellness. So like I'm definitely a strength training girly, but also I balance strength training with Legree Pilates. So like my
Lovely.
ideal split is like, oh, Legree's the best. It's very humbling as
Yes.
someone that likes to lift weights. So you're like, oh, like I'm actually really weak. So like my biggest hobby is probably fitness. So working out, like strength training like 4 times a week, doing Legree once a week on the weekend as my little like me time and like runs here and there. And then also like anything to do with mental health. Like I love anything to do with like spirituality or like self-development, like the term like life design. So like just thinking about how I want to design my life in a way that will make me feel really fulfilled. And I'm definitely very much like a process person. So like I build that into my like weekly and monthly processes to like reflect on the goals I'd set for myself in December for the new year, like actually checking in on them. And a lot of them have to do with like the connections that I have with people. So I don't know if like you had the cell phone back in the day where you had your top 5 contacts and like you okay, cool. Yeah, I guess you're only 2 years younger than me. I don't know why I'm like, you're like 10 years younger than me, but no. So, the top five. So I actually stole that concept And I just think about who my top 5-ish friends are. So it's like, I think it's like 6 in my notes. But once a month, I have like a reminder that comes up to be like, checking on your top 5. Most of the time, I've already talked to them within like the past like week. But if I haven't talked to one of them, it's like a good reminder to check in on them. So yeah, one of my big hobbies is just like hanging out with my friends and like spending time with people I love. Obviously, travel is a big one. I'm going to Arizona next week. It's going to be very hot, I think. I'm a little nervous, but going for a wellness retreat. So that's going to be really fun too.
That's going to be so fun.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so before we wrap up, I have to ask you about what I call your founder stack. These are 7 rapid fire questions that I ask all of the guests about your journey thus far. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
First question is, what tool do you live and die by?
Ooh, reminders app on my phone or Claude now, honestly.
When the reminders app connected to the calendar, life-changing.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, I'm just like such an old school girl. Like, I just love my reminders. Like, if I'm on a walk and I think of something, I just talk to my phone. I'm like, remind me. And, like, it's sometimes like the simplest tools that work the best.
Yes, I literally do the exact same thing. I keep a notepad in my bedside table also because I can't tell you how many times I will like right before bed have a thought. And as much as I try to say like, oh, I'll remember in the morning, I never remember.
No, I'm definitely a pen to paper girl.
Yes, very much like I'm an analog girl for sure.
Yeah, same. I got my notebook right here.
Okay, next question. What is the best money you've spent on your business under $5,000?
Under 5,000. I mean, filing your articles of incorporation is really important. That was $800. What else was under $5,000? Getting our first business coach, I think, is important. I mean, because our hourly is under $5,000, and it's really important to have someone to like coach you. What else? Oh, getting a deck designer for our first fundraise, because we had designed our own deck in Canva and it was so ugly. And also, when you work with like a deck designer, they can take a step back and see like the story of why you're raising. As a founder, you can be so in the weeds that you might not realize like the bigger picture story of what's enticing for an investor. So we spent a couple grand on like working with a brand agency to create the deck and the story. So yeah, those would probably be the top ones.
Yeah. And I also think like investors, depending on which route you're going, are looking for different things. Like a VC is looking for something completely different than like a PE versus an angel investor. So I think it's always good to think about that from that perspective too, of like, what are they optimizing for when you're giving that kind of a presentation? Okay. What is a book or resource that influenced your entrepreneurial experience?
The book Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Have you read it?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it yet.
It's really good. It's great for founders and entrepreneurs. And it's all about getting you to work more on the things that only you can do and scaling up your time more and just being really ruthless with like analyzing where your time's going in your day and your week. And it's just very tactical. And it's also a fun story to listen to. So like the audiobook is great. I would get it after this interview.
I love a good audiobook for like a walk. I think this would be a perfect.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. I'm also going to link everything below too, so everybody can have access to it. Okay. Next question is, what is one belief or assumption you had when you started that's now completely reversed?
The imposter syndrome fully goes away. I remember when we first started, I was like, okay, once I hit X thousand in sales or like X number of retailers, or once we have a team of this size or raise this much money, then I'll feel like I know my stuff. And that did not happen. And it's because like, as you go through problems, you encounter bigger problems. And so like, yes, you know how to deal with the small ones, but then you're just faced with new ones as you continue to grow. And being a founder, you're always going to be dealing with new problems. So I learned that like the imposter syndrome doesn't go away, but like learning how to deal with it is what's more important.
I feel like next time I have you on the podcast, we have to talk more about the action. No matter how crazy your day gets, I feel like I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What's the one thing you look forward to that you aren't willing to sacrifice?
Did you think I was going to say workout?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Like even yesterday, I had a board meeting. I had a 2-hour strategy session with my co-founder. We had editor meetings and like work on top of that. And at the end of the day, I was like, I need to do my strength training. Just like you get your energy out. So that's something. And I always stretch before I go to bed. And every night when I'm in bed, I read. And it's not like self-development stuff. It's like trashy chick lit or like murder mysteries. Cause it's like, you need to disconnect. Yeah.
I do the exact same thing. I keep my like self-help stuff for during the day, but right before bed, it's always romantasy. always.
Oh my God, of course. Yeah. Just because then if you are reading self-help or like business books, you're not going to turn off your brain. So yeah, but the book I'm reading right now is actually really interesting. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality. Have you heard about it?
Yes, I've read that before.
Oh, it's so good. I can't believe I haven't read it before. I'm really enjoying it.
I think it's so good from like a customer service perspective. It really helps you to think about like, how are we customer centric? How are we serving our customers? Like what other ways can we go above and beyond for them? Like overserve, you know?
Yeah, it's so good.
Okay, last two questions. What brand in or outside of your industry is really inspiring you right now?
Ooh, in or outside of my industry? Well, okay. Again, I'm so into health, so two health ones come to mind. One is the 8 Sleep. It's like the mattress cooling thing because we have one. And they recently, I just like how they're always thinking about like how they can improve. So I just saw that they released a like pregnancy feature. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting that like they really cater to the female market. And same with Aura. I'm obsessed with that brand as well.
Me too.
And then another one that comes to mind is Seed, like, you know, the symbiotic, just because I like how they're all about transparency and about making few products, but really well. I really admire the way that they've built. And then one in the beauty space I really admire is Crown Affair. And her whole thing is about like taking your time with what you do and what you build. And I find that their branding is really beautiful and they have like a really clear view of who they are.
Yeah. Have you heard of Sleep or Die?
Yeah, I've heard of that brand recently. What do they do?
Okay. So Lauren, I think her last name is Sudeiko, something like that. So she started out making mouth tape and then just recently expanded into like Listerine strips, but for sleep.
What?
It's incredible. She's like having such an amazing time right now. I follow her on Substack, huge fan. I've just been like watching her growth and I'm like, go further, fly faster.
Oh my gosh, I need to.
I think what she's doing is really cool. Like it's clearly differentiated in the sleep space. And what her brand is all about is like raging sort of against the hustle culture and saying like sleep is an important part of our daily experience. It's what makes us better human beings during the daytime. And like we should be prioritizing that. And so she builds all these products to help for that. But branding is great. Storytelling is great. And she's really having a moment right now. So I was like wondering if you'd heard anything about that too.
Yeah, I remember hearing the brand and someone had told me like they're doing really well, but I didn't remember what they make. So I'm going to follow her after this.
Okay, last question. What song or album do you have on repeat right now?
It's so funny because for our team, every Friday we have a gratitude call and each person goes around and shares like a piece of gratitude. And then there's also a question that rotates every week. And today's question was, what's your no skip album? So it's just funny. So it's not necessarily one that like is currently on repeat, but I can definitely listen to Lainey, like Lany, their first album, their self-titled Lainey album, and also Malibu Nights. Those are two of my favorite albums.
Okay. Thank you for saying that. I feel so validated because I'm a Lainey fan, but specifically their first album is like one of my all-time favorites.
It's so good.
I absolutely like loved them and like Pink Skies, like anything like that. I love all their earlier stuff too.
Yeah, I know. I like their earlier stuff more. I know it sounds like those, like, you know, everyone's like, oh, I was like one of the first, but like I do like their early songs more than some of their newer ones. I remember when they were in Toronto, like years and years ago, I remember seeing them when tickets were like $20 and it was in this like grungy little basement somewhere. And like someone threw their bra on stage and the main singer, I forget his name, Paul or something, he like wore the bra, like, and then years later I saw them at Coachella and I was like, dang, this is crazy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That is so cool. Well, Connie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I sincerely appreciate you taking the time and connecting with me and sharing your wisdom and your expertise. Like I truly, truly, truly am so grateful.
Yeah, it was so much fun. It was really fun to walk down memory lane. And I hope that helped with your upcoming startup.
Very much. Thank you.
That's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. I truly hope that you guys enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I was pinching myself the whole time and I was like kind of nervous, but Connie's amazing and I am just so beyond grateful that she was willing to come on the podcast. So please find all the links to connect with her in the show notes. If you feel called to support the podcast, please leave a review, comment below. That's truly like the most impactful thing you can do. If you're looking to contribute to the podcast, I would be deeply honored if you wanted to buy me a matcha. The link is also below. And if you enjoyed this episode and are looking for more before the next one, dive into the well on Substack. There you'll find more founder wisdom and essays on entrepreneurship. But until then, I will see you guys next week.